Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you a shoutcast in a game between Grubby versus Darkforce here on Metalopolis. We have Grubby spawning as the green Protoss player here at the bottom, or at the 6 o'clock position. Meanwhile, we have Darkforce spawning as the purple Zerg here at the 9 o'clock position. This is going to be close air spawns. And this is the ESL version of the map, the esports version of the map, so I'm not quite sure if you can have an ally spawn here. I would assume that that is not the case, as most players feel that close ally spawn does not bode well for Zerg players. As a probe now making its way out, yes, scouting out in the opposite direction, the clockwise direction, to check if it's going to be a close air spawn. It indeed will be. And we'll see what this probe tries to do. This probe doing a very early scouting right after the pylon. It will set up a little bit of a delay in his economy, but there shouldn't be too much of any sort of negative interaction there. The probe just going to come up the ramp, see if there's creep, and yes, he does see that there is in fact creep, and now taking a look around, tries to see if there is going to be a spawning pool placed down. He doesn't see anything just quite yet. He does see the extractor now being placed down. And with that extractor, it would probably be a 95% chance that it will be a spawning pool next. However, I have seen Zerg players try to do a little bit of a head fake where he builds the extractor and the probe doesn't go down to block the hatchery, and then because of that, he's able to build the hatchery and then cancel the extractor for that drone back, and that has worked out quite well sometimes. We are, however, going for Grubby, who doesn't have a front door seal. This is a rather strange maneuver, as we are now going into another pylon here, and this is going to be a problem. The spawning pool will get up in just a moment, and without a zealot and the necessary wall to fend off the attack, the Zerglings will be able to get in rather easily. You can see that Darkforce currently sitting at 15/18. We'll see if he goes for a lot of Zerglings, or perhaps he actually tries to train up a queen, and that will eat into a little bit of his food cap there. Now going into 15/26. So Darkforce now getting into 19/26, and now getting into the queen and some Zerglings. You can see a Cybernetics core now being warped in, a Zealot trying to make its way over. Another gateway or another building needs to be placed down, perhaps even a forge, to try to fend off this attack. Otherwise, Grubby is going to be in a bit of trouble. The probe of Grubby now is just sitting down here on the low ground, perhaps going to pull away. There is no pylon here. Darkforce doesn't look like he wants to actually go after or go inside the base just quite yet, and the probe will take a little bit of damage. There's a second gateway, and even though the front door is late, it is still arriving exactly when it needs to be, as it will be able to fend off the large number of Zerglings and the harassment now coming in. So that probe down to 7 hit points or 7 shields should be able to mineral path straight through, no problem there. And the Zealot just saying, come on, make my day. And oh, the Zergling just trying to play a very, make sure that the Zealot of Grubby is on hold position. It in fact is. There is a queen over here as well. A lot of spawn larva. A second queen now being trained. Will move down to the low ground, perhaps setting up a creep tumor first, which does help out trying to connect those bases. And as a sentry now makes its way out, the Zergling decides that it doesn't want to stick around any longer. Currently, we're running off of 2 gateways, and at this stage, I would suspect a Stargate. A Stargate off of close air spawns is a very viable option. It works out rather well. Warp Gate research about to be completed, and no, Grubby now going into a Nexus instead. We are only at the 5.5 minute mark of the game, as the queen now makes its way down, and you're going to see the queen not have enough energy for a spawn larva for a little bit. The drones also moving down a little bit too quickly, but as soon as the creep tumor does make its way down, the creep will spread rather quickly, and then more spawn larva coming in. So Darkforce will be able to get 10 or 20 larva every minute, as long as he doesn't build any additional creep tumors with the energy on those queens. Roach Warren now being warped into play, and we'll see how Grubby fends this off. There's going to be a lot of roach pressure in just a moment. One of the benefits of 2-base Zerg play, and then being able to transition into a lot of drones, and then following it up with a lot of army units. Just the flexibility of Zerg, as the Zergling now running across the map. There are some additional gateways being placed down, and very curious positioning on those gateways, as those roaches are going to be able to peck apart at them rather easily. Unless Grubby utilizes this high ground right here, perhaps this gateway should have been a little bit further back, and utilizing this high ground, and now another Zergling has been taken down, and Grubby going into 6 sentries as we are also getting a forge and those gateways that I mentioned just moments ago. One stalker on the low ground here, and taking a look back into Darkforce. Darkforce getting a decent number of roaches and some zerglings, so he will be just racking up the army now in just a moment, as the creep tumors are now starting to make their way out, perhaps trying to spread slowly into the base of Grubby. Zealot is here. The Zealot is going to try to fend off a larger number of Zerglings. Oh, and very nicely done by Grubby, making sure that the Zealot is up against the wall. He will not be able to get that third Zergling kill. The Zergling down to 4 hit points there, and now in come the roaches. So the roaches now swarming in. Force field going across the bat there, and now across the just a bow there, and now roaches getting caught on the wrong side. That one stalker perhaps should just even try to engage there, but another sentry has been taken down. This is going to turn into a micro war in just a little bit. Chrono boosting on the warp gates to try to increase or decrease the cooldown and increase how many units are currently coming into play. Grubby does also have a robotics facility, but it's going to be a very difficult to fend off right now, as the roaches are now battling out this force or this cannon not in position, as the sentries getting in a lot of damage, or the Zerglings getting in a lot of damage. Sentries trying to battle it out. All of those roaches are just fending off this attack, and so many just force fields placed down, and you can see that the roaches are continuing to try to push through a very nice pocket, making it very difficult for the Zerglings to get in. But as the sentry energy slowly comes down, he really needs to make sure that the army is stopped, and there he goes, able to get a dedicated stop, making sure that the flood of the Zerg doesn't continue to come in. A hatchery now being built at the 10 o'clock high ground expansion location, as Darkforce does not want to fall behind in the long-term game. Also teching the tier 2, and we are almost at layer, as we are getting some additional gas as well. So a very nice transition coming in from Darkforce. Darkforce came in there with a large army, was knocking on that front door. He didn't overcommit, I don't think. It didn't feel like he overcommitted. He was trying to just put Grubby up against the wall, and he has done that. Grubby is now in a very strong defensive posture, as we now see Darkforce establishing his third base, getting higher tech, getting the roach movement speed, which is very important, and also going for burrow. So he may have to play whack-a-mole against all of those roaches. Roaches regenerate hit points rather quickly, as Grubby also taking this chance to establish an expansion. Expansion of Darkforce is up slightly faster. At some point, Darkforce does need to set up another hatchery, as right now, if he's only building off of Zerglings and roaches, he will not have enough larvae to for the economy he's going to be able to generate, even if he continues to macro up very well with these queens. We'll see what's going to be happening here. Harvester count 54 compared to 47, and both sides just getting up a very, very strong economy. And now we're going into a Hydralisk Den. A very interesting maneuver by Darkforce. Normally at this stage we would see a Spire get placed down, and now Grubby doing that customary wall that so many Protoss players like to do, preventing Zerglings from running by. One photon cannon right here to act as a little bit of a deterrent. And then those gateways can, because you can warp in those units anywhere, allow them to just sit there and you know, be pretty effective. We are going to have the Stalkers walk back up. There are a decent number of sentries now. Once again, back into play. More units coming in, warping in along the low ground, as we are going into the Ventral Sacs and Pneumatized Carapaces. So a drop may be coming in, and this is something that I've recently really liked to see from high-level Zerg. Drops were something that we didn't see very much in the beta, and even during the early portion of the Wings of Liberty release. It was just always this massive ground army against massive ground army, and ground armies tend to fall apart against Zerg sentries. Yeah, I believe if you watch the OGS MC match versus Idra at MLG Columbus, you'll see that same thing with Root Minigun. Even though it's no longer Root, Root has merged teams. And oh, also a little bit of StarCraft 2 news. Four Kings is back. So yeah, Four Kings, very well known for Four Kings in Warcraft 3, which Grubby was a part of. It is now making its way back into StarCraft 2, and they have established quite a strong team so far. Or as people say, I don't know the members just quite yet. I just know that Four Kings is back and running. Spire now being placed down in addition to the Infestation Pit. So all three tech paths coming in from Darkforce at tier 2. The Spire, the Hydralisk Den, and the Infestation Pit. And it's going to be a very wide combination of units. We should be getting the Pathogen Glands as well. And I'm surprised by Grubby. Grubby doesn't have that much map presence. He doesn't have that enough observers to really figure out what's going on inside the game right now. Grubby, if he really wants to win this game, needs to really rack up his production, get his upgrades, extended thermal lance. He needs that weapons upgrade as well. And just constantly be producing units. He is double training Colossus off of 3 bases, 2 robotics facilities. And we'll see how this continues to work out for him. He is chrono boosting that extended thermal lance range there, as a large army of roaches are moving out. Overseer also moving out very, very quickly as well. The Zerg benefiting from being able to convert any of their overlords into overseers, as this overseer is just taking into the air. Overlords are now perhaps going to do a drop here, so there is 15 banelings ripe and ready. There are a couple stalkers in this position as well. There are a couple sentries and another photon cannon being added. But still no additional weapons upgrade because we don't have that Twilight Council yet. Stalkers are pushing their way out, and now one overlord gonna get quickly shot down there. Down it goes. There are still 2 overlords in the center of the map, but Grubby doesn't know if they're just scouting owls or if they actually have something in that will make it a very, very bad day. Level 1 armor upgrade now coming in addition to the Greater Spire. We are going to get some Zerglings now dropping in over here. The Zerglings now cleaning up against that one proxy pylon. There are a couple sentries in this position. Now Colossus that are able to walk up and down the cliffs so easily. Going to finish off all of those Zerglings in just a second or 2. No real damage dealt. Meanwhile, the main army of Darkforce moving out. A lot of Roaches and Hydralisks. And what's going to be critical is whether or not those force fields are able to come down and destroy any units. Corruptors are being added, so we may also be getting a couple more Broodlords in just a moment. The Corruptors need to stick around long enough to destroy the Colossi. Colossi are now level 1 weapons upgrade, getting the level 2 now, and also getting Blink, so Grubby really just playing it very, very safe, holding back and waiting for something to happen as the Colossi are now just continuing to wander around. Not much really to talk about, a lot of gateways, and we're just waiting for the battle to come. We are running off of 4 bases compared to 3, and now Darkforce establishing up another base. Same thing with Grubby in the center portion of the map, and this is kind of like a yin-yang battle as we are now getting a drop inside the base. A lot of Roaches are inside here, so the Roaches are going to be able to get and snipe down one of those photon cannons rather easily. 8 Roaches dealing a lot of damage. Meanwhile, the main battle happening over here. Colossi out of position, and many of those Roaches are going to get destroyed. I believe a lot of Colossus were lost in that engagement there, as the Stalkers are now trying to fend off against this attack here. And Darkforce with the first blow, both sides dealing damage towards each other. Force fields are not as effective as Grubby would like them to be. And now another fungal growth preventing a lot of movement from those units. And now in comes a longer battle over here. Roaches and Hydralisks now trying to run away, but unable to do so. There are Broodlord cocoons now coming in as well. So Broodlords are now just raining in those Broodlings. They should not even be trying to back off. They need to engage, as if they move away at this time, they're just going to get picked apart, as they do move rather slowly. And Grubby, even though he had lost so many of his Colossus, takes the lead, and now I believe his army advantage may just be too much. You are getting a lot more Roaches out. The Overlords perhaps pretending to drop some Banelings onto this ball over here, as the Colossus are just constantly being able to attack and move. Colossi so powerful, being able to attack, move with essentially siege range at a range of 9 against that ground force. Essentially all ground units simply melt away in a massive battle against Zerg. So we are going to have Stalkers now blinking up onto the high ground. Apparently Grubby didn't know to smart blink any of those Stalkers. Those Stalkers now once again backing off, perhaps sitting off into this position. There are going to be some Infestors. Infestors are going to try to get off a fungal growth. Stalkers are now battling it out. There's one fungal growth. Roaches now pushing their way through. A lot of damage is dealt, but the Stalkers are able to blink back and forth. Stalkers may blink up onto the high ground as well here, and perhaps cut off many of those Roaches. Roaches now trying to push in once more. Stalkers are continuing to battle it out, and I think Darkforce cannot really do that much. There is one Broodlord, but with so many Stalkers along the backside here, Grubby will be able to clean up that Broodlord with no problem at all. And Colossus so powerful, getting so much damage dealt. And now I believe it's just a matter of time before we see the GG production tab. More Roaches, but nothing really that will counter this army. And still more production coming in from Grubby. Grubby letting his units start to mass up in the center portion of the map, and perhaps trying to win a much more micro-intensive battle. Grubby very well known for his micro in Warcraft 3, but right now his micro is failing him as he loses two low hit point Colossus, 2 Corruptors. As Stalkers are continuing to battle it out, taking down the rest of those Corruptors. Roach is also getting destroyed. And yeah, Grubby just can simply almost attack move with this army and take the game. And there's the GG. I think it was a little bit later, but Darkforce really, I admire the fact that Darkforce wanted to pull it out and try to get Grubby to finish him off completely. And at this stage, perhaps Grubby could have made a mistake, perhaps missed micro. You did see him lose a couple of those Colossus rather needlessly, but it was still enough. Those Stalkers at 2-1 upgrades along with those Colossus fighting against, I believe, 1-1 upgraded Roaches. So yeah, those Roaches never saw the level 2 upgrades, and that was a real disappointment, as I thought we saw a lot more evolution chambers down here, and I believe it was really the upgrades that took its toll in addition to the combination of units. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed Game 1 in this series. Grubby taking Game 1.